told him about YWAM and how they teach people how to hear the voice of God. And he's like gasping and shocked. And he said, "Well, can you teach me?" And I'm like, okay, all right, God, help me. Well, when I was on my outreach in South Korea, we were in Onsan, and we did an English camp that week at a church. And during that week, we stayed in host families. The family that I stayed in hardly spoke any English, and there was a 14-year-old boy, his name is Max. He was the one I spent most of my time with, and he knew very, very little English. So throughout the week, we tried to have conversations, but they're very basic, lots of hand gestures, Google Translate, and misunderstandings. But we got through the week, and it was really cool. We got to know each other. Near the end of the camp, almost the last day, the day before the last day of the camp, Max was in my friend Zach's class, and Zach was talking to the class about hearing the voice of God. And that evening, Max came to me, and he told me the story that Zach said in class, and I was shocked. I was like, what's going on? Like, we haven't been able to really communicate, and he said it in really good English. And so I was really surprised by that. And then he asked me about my testimony, and I shared my testimony with him, and he really understood. I could see that he got it. And I could really feel the Holy Spirit in that moment, breaking the language barrier, and we were having that connection. And then I told him about my testimony and how I hear the voice of God, and I told him about YWAM and how they teach people how to hear the voice of God. And he's like gasping and shocked, and he said, "Well, can you teach me?" And I'm like, okay, all right, God, help me. So through Google Translate and trying my best, we sat there for about an hour, and I told him about quiet times, how to hear the voice of God. God gave me a word for him in James chapter 1, where it talks about, asking God for wisdom, and he'll freely give it to you. And I told him to read that, and I saw him, he read that, his face like lit up, and I could see that he got it. And so he said he wanted to read the rest of the book of James. So that night he had a quiet time, and he read the book of James. The next day was the last day of the camp, and right at the end of the camp we were going to leave to the next place. So anyways, right before I was leaving, he was reading his Bible at the church, and he told me that he read the book of James the night before and that morning. And he said, it's very short, but there's so much to get out of it. And I was like, yeah, isn't it awesome? And he said, it's really hard, but I want to read more. And so he's like, what should I read next? And so I showed him John. I just helped him find John, and he started reading that. As I left, he was reading that, and it was really incredible. I didn't understand how to really connect with him and minister to him with that huge language barrier. But I saw the Holy Spirit come in that, and he was so hungry, and God worked through me, through the language barrier, and spoke into his life. And I know that he's hearing the voice of God, and he will continue more and more.